Welcome back, truth seekers and liberty lovers from all over the world and throughout the cosmos. You are in the Freedom Portal. And a special welcome to those of you who are here for the first time today. The Freedom Portal is the Thrive subscription offering, and periodically we get to do these open public events like this. And we welcome you all. There are thousands of you here newly today. And you might let us know, raise your hand if you're on Zoom, or let us know in the chat if this is your first time. And Freedom Portal veterans, feel free to welcome the newcomers. So I always like to start with what the heck are we doing here? So I'm going to share my screen and show you what our purpose is. I'm of the belief that there's nothing in the universe that isn't a function of purpose. So the purpose of the Freedom Portal is to provide an interactive communication opening with humanity, through which productive explorations, compelling media, and effective actions can be shared to help guide us to truly thrive. A quick introduction to the Freedom Portal for those of you who are here for the first time. The Freedom Portal includes 3 virtual session types. One is 7 levels deep, where I take a topic and I literally go down the rabbit hole and out the other side. Find out what's in the way of our thriving and then how we can actually solve the problem. And then the second type is a network dialogue, where we just do an open Q&A where you ask me and I ask you back. And then the final one is the Pioneer Series. And today is an example of the Pioneer Series. We like to say at the Freedom Portal, our true nature is creative, courageous, loving, and free. There is light at the end of the rabbit hole. And the type of topics that we have been covering so far since we opened this portal back in October are truth about COVID, how to have important conversations with friends without losing the relationship, unified science, unpacking money, truth about conspiracy, health freedom, and more. And that last one is the one we're particularly focusing on today. We are so excited to have, first of all, Kimberly back for her final appearance as special guest host today, and Gregg Braden. I know a lot of you have come on to get to hang out with Gregg, which we always love to do, and we've been in amazing conversations with him, building up to what's the most powerful messages that we can deliver together today. And then we are super excited to be joined by 3 amazing musicians. We found out about the third one just yesterday. So Kita's picture is not on here, but this is just Magic and Jenna Lee Prince, who will be joining us for a couple of songs of freedom today. So first I wanted to just tell you what the program for today is going to be. I'm going to introduce Kimberly shortly and then invite her to do a little recap of the last 2 programs that brought us up to where we are right now. Then she's going to introduce Gregg, who will do a presentation. And then we will have a freedom song. Then we'll do a roundtable with the 3 of us, Gregg and Kimberly and me, talking about whatever has come up in the process of Gregg's presentation. And we invite you, as you're listening to the presentation, to be sending in questions in the Q&A function or in the chat if you're not in Zoom. And we will get to as many of those questions as we can. We can't raise the expectations that we will get to them all by any means, but we'll get to as many as we can. Then we'll have a second song of freedom. We'll have some announcements, some final statements from the special guests, and then we will close for the day. Before we bring the others on, to get started, I'd like to do one poll that I have borrowed from Gregg's amazing book, one of his amazing books. This one is called The Science of Self-Empowerment, and you'll be hearing more about that. But I was really struck by this particular poll that's in the book. So we selected 3 particularly relevant questions, And we'd like you to take a look at this. Now, again, if you're on YouTube, because there's a big overflow that Zoom couldn't handle today, but those of you who are on Zoom, you can just click yes or no in answer to these questions. The first one is, do you believe that the origin of life in general, this is really key, life in general, is the result of a chance event that happened long ago, as conventional science suggests? So while that's fresh in your mind, yes or no? No right answer, just whatever you think. Second question, do you believe that human life, your life, is the result of a chance event that happened long ago, as evolutionary theory suggests? So this is the human life aspect of evolution. So yes or no? And then finally, do you believe that you are designed to consciously influence the events of your life, the quality of your life, and how long you live? So consciously influence the events, the quality, and the length of your life. Doesn't mean absolutely dictate them, but consciously influence them. Okay, so get those in and submit those as quickly as you can. And while you're doing that, we're waiting for the sum total on that, I want to make one other announcement. We'll reiterate it later on because we don't want you to miss this one. But we are going to let the new Thrive 2 movie go for free all over the internet for a limited period of time, starting April 23rd. So we highly recommend that you go to register to be notified for when that opens up. And you go to www.thriveon.com/free21. Okay. So we want as many people to see this film as possible. That's why we made it. The impact of over 91 million documented views from Thrive 1 has been huge. And we wanted to follow that with the new messages of encouragement that we've found in the meantime. And we need to run a business also. We need to sustain our ability to get these communications out. So we've been charging for the purchase and the rental of the movie, and we will be again, but there will be this limited time. So let your friends know and register for that. So Leandrew, why don't you come on and just say a hello, and then we'll bring the results of the poll on.
Hey guys, good to be back on the Freedom Portal. I'm super excited for today's show. As a longtime fan of Gregg's work, and for the opportunity to get to connect with those of you that aren't usually with us on the Freedom Portal. And let me tell you guys, just hearing these guys, Foster, Gregg, and Kimberly go over, just graze over the content they're going to talk about today was so mind-blowing. And hearing a sample of the musical guests, it's just, you're in for an amazing show. I'm super excited. It's going to be hard for me to remember that, like, I'm here to help run the show and not just sit back and enjoy it as a fan.
So we love having you here, Leandro, and we couldn't do it without you. When I saw your new background today, my first thought was, oh my gosh, Leandro's falling into the Freedom Portal. There he goes. That's great. Okay, so why don't you bring up the results of the poll? Let's just get a sense. All right, so do you believe that the origin of life in general is the result of a chance event that happened long ago, as conventional science suggests? 8% say yes, and 92% say no. All right, so maybe we'll fill in some of that wondering today. Second one, do you believe that human life, your life, is the result of a chance event that happened long ago, as evolutionary theory suggests? 7% yes, 93% no. And do you believe that you are designed to consciously influence the events of your life, the quality of your life, and how long you live? 98% say yes. I wish that were a universal poll rather than just a Thrive Freedom Portal poll. But thank you for sending that in. That's really great to kind of know what we are speaking into. So next, please, would you bring on Kimberly? So
Hey.
most of you know, but Kimberly is the producer, the director, and co-writer of both films, Thrive 1 and Thrive 2. She's the CEO of Thrive On, and in her spare time, she's my beloved partner in everything and has been willing to do an amazing job of being our extra special guest star this month for this health freedom topic. So Kimberly, welcome back.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here and with everybody from all over the world. I just love to see that we all get to spend our time together on this day. So thank you. And I
must say, I'm feeling a little bit wistful already that this is your last commitment for a while on the Freedom Portal. It's been so great having you here.
Thank you. It's been really fun. And I've learned a lot, and I'm excited to learn more today. And I'll just take very few minutes to do a recap of what was really 4 hours of exploration in two of the series that led up to this third one on health freedom. It's been fascinating. And so I'll just go through some key points so that you understand the context for our conversation today. And generally, what we did was we explored the interface of biology and technology and the implications in everything in our lives, ethics, economics, really everything. And we explored health in terms of balance, that good health is good balance within and among our tissues and organs and with our environment and our relations, our spiritual and psychological integrity, and that balance is maintained through feedback. Naturally, that happens. A fever is feedback about our temperature being out of balance, or it could be a rash or a sleepless night, even cancer. All of those are natural forms of feedback. And you can also get more subtle real-time feedback using technology, data-driven feedback, using technology. And this is the interface that we've been exploring. So you can, in terms of early diagnosis or prevention of illness, this earlier indication of things can be really useful. You can use a sonogram, for example, to show something before it's manifest outside. You can use a wearable, like a Fitbit or something, to get your heart rate in real time, or internal monitoring for insulin if you're a diabetic. There's also surveillance on the outside, of course, to monitor the behavior of a community. All of these involve an interface of technology and biology, and it's called the Internet of Bodies. And it provides data about the functioning of our bodies, and that data is gathered, it's transmitted, it's stored, it's bought, it's sold. It's the basis of what's called the fourth industrial revolution, which we got into, which is worth multiple trillions of dollars, and of course has all kinds of ramifications on everything, education and economy, ethics, all of it. Anyway, in this Internet of Bodies, there are three components of something called transhumanism. And the first aspect of it, so I think, Foster, you have a slide on transhumanism defining it. It's essentially this interface of artificial intelligence and human biology. And the first aspect of it is augmentation, so that you can use artificial intelligence and technology to augment human biology. You could think, so that's technocracy. But anyway, the whole idea of augmentation could even be something where it's like contact lenses would be considered using technology to augment human biology. The second aspect of it is replacement. So you could replace your hip or use a metal, rod to replace a shattered bone. Those are the replacement technologies. And those have to do with using artificial intelligence to overlay or somehow interface with human biology as the core. The third component sort of moves it the other way, where the AI technology is the core essence in the form of robots, where the essence of humanness is supposedly able to be uploaded into this technological robot. And that final stage is called singularity, and it represents the ultimate expression of it would represent where the AI robots become the dominant force, no longer controlled by humans, but rather humans controlled by them. And this is actually a far more widely accepted and well-funded proposition than we might tend to think. So we explored this and we gave a lot of evidence for it. And you can see excerpts from the first series and the second on YouTube. Those will be linked to in the show notes and probably in the chat here. And those are excerpts. They're fascinating conversations on the Freedom Portal where we really get to go in depth and interact with the subscribers. So I do encourage you to join that as well. But you can check out the excerpts on YouTube. And then in the second series, of course, it all leads to really big questions about ethics, about economics, and this whole internet of bodies interface. And so we brought on Christian Pusateri in the second one, who has done fabulous work. He's from Superhumans, Inc., and he's done a lot to explore data sovereignty and ownership of ourselves and how to take advantage of the technological interface and feedback without giving up our humanness or our self-ownership. And we also brought on John Hunt, who's from Sedera, which is a health share alternative to traditional insurance. Insurance is one of the bottlenecks of how we experience limited access to full health freedom and health choice. So again, you can find excerpts from that on YouTube and in the show notes and in the chat. But because this really brings up all kinds of conversations about what it means to be human and DNA and consciousness and all of that. When I was in the midst of the research, delving into all of this, I was having a conversation with my dear friend, Gregg Braden, who's one of my all-time favorite people and who I really especially regard as a scientist, very highly respected scientist, who is actually a geologist. And in what it takes to become a geologist, of course, he studied the life sciences and chemistry and math, and he was really trained in a methodology of being curious, evidence-based, and holistic. You know, Darwin was a geologist, so it's kind of fitting that they both come at this inquiry into what it means to be human and yeah, what does it mean to be human is really the fundamental question at stake here. So Gregg shared when we were talking his latest research on this whole transhumanist agenda, and especially about the science of our humanness, our DNA and our consciousness, and the immense power we have to determine the path forward by revisiting the path that brought us here. So we would have these conversations. We always had meetings on the other side of them. We'd stay to the very last minute. And it was so exciting. I invited Gregg to come join us here to share this really valuable and often unspoken perspective into the science behind how we got to be who we are and what it foretells about where we can go from here. So I'm delighted to introduce 5 times New York Times bestselling author and scientist and a wonderful, courageous, intelligent, compassionate human being, Gregg Braden.
Oh, Kimberly, thank you so much for, it's always interesting to hear someone else describe your life. So thank you for the warm welcome and for the fast review of my life history as a geologist. And Foster, thank you so much for creating the Thrive portal. And both of you for thinking of me to invite me to share this afternoon with you. I can't think of anything more relevant, more exciting, more powerful than to do what we're doing. And also, Leandro, I just want to thank my brother in technology for all your love and support and all the care behind the scenes, and everyone that's joining us today. So, Kimberly, my sense is our time's going to go quickly. I'm going to invite you to lead our conversation, and I am honored to follow you in this dance wherever the dance leads. Where would you like to go to begin?
Thank you. I'd love to have your understanding about DNA and what does it actually mean to be human? Because this whole interface of augmenting, replacing, interacting with technology is so significant and prevalent and so much a part of what's happening that we need to understand who we are to understand what changes we're talking about and what's the worldview that the whole proposition's based on. I'd love to have you share some of that insight.
Yeah, it's a good place to begin, Kimberly. Thank you. So as you mentioned, I am a scientist. I'm a degreed earth scientist. My background in geophysics and geology, but I have a strong background in a number of other disciplines that led to that. So I have a very strong background in the life sciences, invertebrate and vertebrate paleontology, and I happened to be in the academic system at the time that computers were first coming into vogue back in the late 60s and early 70s. So I've got a background in computer science, programming, and math, physics, chemistry, history, archaeology, and cosmology. And I say that because it is my background, as you mentioned, in those sciences that has helped me to stay abreast of the new discoveries that are coming out. You know, the technology is evolving so quickly that the science journals that used to dedicate a monthly volume every 30 days, the journal Science, for example, or the journal Nature, would publish a new volume. The discoveries are happening so quickly that they are augmented with weekly newsletters so that we can stay on top of the discoveries until the monthly newsletter comes out. And all of this has led me to recognize in the different disciplines how quickly the technology is converging. And it isn't converging in a way that is following a thought process that has been underway for over 100 years. But the technology now is enabling the thinking to be implemented and enforced in our daily lives. So I know that you in the previous conversations, you've talked about this thought process a little bit. The thinking is that humankind is a flawed species, that by nature of our existence, that somehow we are weak, vulnerable, imperfect, and flawed as a biological organism, as well as in consciousness. And it is that thinking that has led to the fear of mortality and the desire to replace us with something that, in the opinion of the people that are doing this, to replace us with something they feel is superior to our biology. And I think what I'd like to do, Kimberly, I want to talk about the DNA, but before we even get to that, with your permission, and Foster, if you guys are okay with this, what I'd like to do, this is a very brief, it's not a lengthy presentation, but I put together a few slides that will lead into the conversation on DNA, but it also offers a very different way to think about our biology. Can we launch into that? Are you okay
That'd
if we
be
do
great.
this?
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
So I know this is, I'm just going to share a screen here. We've all done this in the past. I'm going to share my audio. Let's see. You should,
I see it.
okay. And do you see a little Gregg and a big screen?
Yes, we do.
You can see both. All right. So I'm going to run through this quickly, and I think it'll lay a foundation that we can tie into for our conversation. But what we're really talking about, you know, we bring up these topics, and I have been with people that feel they are excluded because they say it's too scientific, too technical. You know, I'm not part of that conversation. So I want to reduce this to something really familiar. What we're talking about is our story. It is the story of the way we've been led to think about ourselves. And our story, it comes from our family, from our culture, our society, our community, our religion, science, friends, and direct experience. All of these contribute, and we all have a story. We may not be consciously aware of it, but we all have a story, and our story is important because our story informs the way that we live every day of our lives. We live our lives based upon our stories. We solve our problems based upon our story. We heal our bodies, and we're going to be talking about this. When something happens within us and we rely on an expert to interpret that, and the expert says, hey, there's something going on that shouldn't be happening, how we respond to that is determined by the way we have been led to think about ourselves. Our politics are determined by our story, our relationships, our society, the laws that we pass, the policies that we enact. So all of a sudden, our story, Kimberly and Foster, it's front and center. It's not an academic, philosophical conversation. It's up for all of us right now because the world just changed. And the world changed, man did it ever, and it's not finished. My world has changed. Everyone who's watching, your world has changed. And that means we've got to think and live differently. It means we've got to change our story. Science is giving us the reason to think differently about ourselves. And that reason is not being shared in the mainstream. So what I'm going to share with you, typically you will not see in mainstream textbooks, mainstream classrooms with the young people, or mainstream documentaries or television. So the key is if you change your story, if you change your personal story, I think we all know you're going to change your life. But where it gets really interesting is we change our collective story, we're changing the world. That's what's up. And I want to tell you, the stakes have never been higher. We've got a planet at stake right now. There is a battle. There is a battle that is being diffused by diversions and distractions. So let me share with you, there's a battle for our story. There's a battle for our thoughts. I think everybody knows that. We're being told what and how to think rather than empowering us to make our own decisions. And I have to tell you, I have seen no mainstream media that is void of this influence. Everybody is part of it. There's a battle for our thoughts. There's a battle for our beliefs. What we believe about climate change, what we believe about 5G, what we believe about whatever's happening in the sky at night, who the lights are, where they're coming from. There's a battle for what we read, and this is a mind blower. In the United States of America in the 21st century, books are being banned in libraries and classrooms. They're literally, they're not saying, hey, it's not accurate. They're saying you are forbidden to even read this to make up your own mind as to whether or not it is accurate. A battle for what we read, there's a battle for what we teach. Where do we come from? What's our origins? Who are we? How did the universe begin? It's playing out in the classrooms. What I want to say is these are the distractions. These are the diversions. There's a battle for our bodies. It's playing out right now, and COVID has pushed this battle front and center. But even this, it's closer, but even this is a distraction from the ultimate battle. And the ultimate battle is nothing less than the battle for our very humanness. Our very humanness is at stake. Our very humanness is on the line. And there is a thinking in parts of the scientific community. It's not all scientists, but I am surprised at how prevalent this and how well accepted this thinking really is, that we are in essence, carbon-based life in general, and humans specifically, are a flawed, inadequate species, but that's okay because we're going to fix it with machines, AI, chemicals, nanoparticles, and this is happening. It's no longer theory. It's actually implemented in some societies. It's being accepted very quickly, and we're not talking about it in the US. The old story is just that we are weak, flawed, and inferior, that we need something outside of us to save us. That's the old story. I'm going to share the new story, the discovery number one. I'm speaking directly to our community here. I want to offer you a very empowering way of thinking of yourself that you probably will not see supported in your kids' classrooms or your textbooks. But this is supported in rock solid peer-reviewed science. So the average adult, whatever that is, we're all average, I guess. We've got about 50 trillion cells in our body, give or take, some more, some less. Here's the point. Every cell, no matter how many there are, has an electrical potential. It's a small one, about 0.07 volts. And you say, well, that's not very much. And I say, you're right, but look at this. You do the math, 0.07 volts times 50 trillion cells. We're talking about 3.5 trillion volts of electrical potential. Now, I know I've seen this in the conference. People take notes, they write this down, 3.5 trillion, because we can't really even wrap our minds around what that is. So I want you to just get a sense of this. This is a 12-volt battery. Usually you see it in your automobile. This happens to be from our solar panels. It's a solar energy is stored in these batteries. That's a 12-volt battery. It takes 3 billion of these to equal the potential in one human of electricity. 3 billion 12-volt batteries equals one human electrical potential. Now, wow. Why don't you think about that? What do we do with that potential? But it doesn't end there, because every cell in our body functions as a transistor and as a resistor. They used to look like this in the old technology. Now, capacitors. Each cell in the body functions as a capacitor. Now they look like this. But they still mimic what our cells already do. Every cell is a resistor, it's a transistor, it's a capacitor. Every cell in our bodies emits photons of light, and we receive photons of light. That's information. We are storing and receiving and generating and transmitting information as light that can be measured. Every cell in our body, on the exterior of the cell, there are transmitters and receivers. We call them receptors. Chemical signals as well as electrical and subtle energetic signals are coming to us, and we transmit those. It doesn't stop at the cell membrane. The level of our DNA, the strands of the DNA and the genes that make up the DNA essentially function as antenna for subtle forms of energy. We transmit, we receive this energy. Every cell in your body stores and retrieves information just like that computer chip you see on the screen, and so much more. So what I'm saying to you is that the technology that we built in the world around us, as advanced and sophisticated as it is, the essence of every function in the outer technology, it mimics what we already do in our biology. It mimics, and this is a very different way of thinking about this, rather than hard chips and wires and chemicals, we are neurons, cell membranes, crystalline bone, and ion potentials moving across cell walls. That is a very sophisticated technology. We literally are a soft technology. We are the technology that we've been waiting for. We are the technology that we're trying to build in the world around us, except our bodies do all of those functions better than the technology can. And we are scalable. We can go from different levels of application that the AI and the chips are not able to do. So this is important, because all of a sudden, rather than being vulnerable and somehow being inadequate, defective forms of life, we are highly advanced, highly sophisticated, technological forms of life. To build all of this into tissue and bone, it's easy to build it into a chip or a wire, but to build it into something that can regenerate and rejuvenate and become more through its lifetime. Wow, what a powerful technology. And here's the key: we regulate all of that power. Not only do we regulate it, we self-regulate it through thoughts, feelings, emotions, beliefs, focus, breath. And this is the essence of our most ancient and cherished spiritual and indigenous traditions. This is what they're saying to us in a non-scientific language. And this is why I think these traditions have been so cherished in the past. So the question is, okay, soft technology, highly advanced, where does it come from? Where does it come from? And the answer to that question is rocking the world of science. So one of the things, and we could go on and on, I just pulled a couple of ideas to launch our conversation.
Love it.
We now have the ability to extract the DNA from the fossilized remains of the beings that we used to believe we descended from. We can pull it out of their fossilized bone marrow, and that means we can compare their DNA to ours. Now, I put a little image on the screen. That's actually fossilized DNA that you're seeing right there coming out of the bone marrow. So this isn't a metaphor. It's not make-believe. I mean, it's a real deal. What it is telling us is that we did not descend from the forms of life that I was taught when I was in school, and we're still teaching our kids today, even though the evidence doesn't support it. We didn't descend from Neanderthal. We shared the earth with them. We didn't descend from them. We may have Neanderthal DNA because we interbred. They say we had Neanderthal boyfriends and girlfriends. So some people say they still do, but that's a whole different story. That's a different workshop. But the point of this is that anatomically modern humans, that's what we're called. Scientists are in total agreement of when it appeared on Earth. And they say we showed up mysteriously about 200,000 years ago. Here's the kicker. We showed up fully enabled, fully intact, with all of the potentials and the capabilities that we have now already with us. The extended neural network, the brain capacity, over 50% larger than any of our primate relatives, the ability to self-regulate, all of those were already with us. They did not develop slowly, gradually over long periods of time, and they have not changed. When we look at our DNA today, that's what the scientific journals are saying. When we look at our DNA and we compare it to the DNA of the early forms of us, it's the same. We haven't changed. Now, just to be clear, I'm a geologist. I believe in evolution. I've seen it in the fossil record for many forms of life. Plants, animals, insects. It breaks down when it comes to humans. Something happened 200,000 years ago. And that something is a series of mutations. And it's not just one. Human chromosome 2 I'm going to talk about because it's one of the most profound. Human chromosome 7 that gives us the ability of complex speech and allows us to sing in a way that you'll never see a chimpanzee sing Stairway to Heaven. Okay, as a musician, that was my big question. If we share 98% of their DNA, why aren't they singing in the trees? And they don't, because there was a shift in our chromosome 7 200,000 years ago that connected our tongue and our mouth and our brain and gives us the ability for singing in complex language. Human chromosome number 2 is perhaps one of the most mysterious, and it may be the smoking gun to answer the question, where do we come from? Now, chromosome number 2, it's the second largest chromosome in the human body. And I want you to know it's responsible. I don't want to get into a lot of the details, but it's responsible for our uniquely human capabilities, things like emotion, sympathy, empathy, compassion, the ability to self-regulate our biology are all made possible because of chromosome number 2. So scientists say this is a pretty important chromosome. Where did it come from? This is a very technical article. It's from Proceedings, National Academy of Sciences. The volume is called Genetics. The bottom line, I won't read this, but the bottom line is that scientists agree that human chromosome 2, and I'm showing you your chromosome 2 on the screen right now, it is the product of a fusion of 2 pre-existing chromosomes that were fully intact, fused together, and you can see there's the little pinch point right there where they were fused. And it's not that they were fused, but even more than that, after the fusion happened, genes were added, genes were taken away, functionality was tweaked to optimize and stabilize what it is that gives us our humanness. And you say, well, that's unusual, but maybe it's a fluke, it could have happened. If it were only one chromosome, I would say maybe. It's not. The fact that chromosome 7 and others, and they all happened at the same time, 200,000 years ago. They did not happen slowly, gradually, over a long period of time, and they haven't changed. So what science, and if that looked too technical, I've got a little movie here, literally 2 chromosomes coming together and genes being added, genes being taken away, and this fusion that's happening. The timing, the fact that it happened when we emerged on this earth, the precision of the adding and the taking away and the fusion and the splicing, and the end result. The end result is us. Scientists are in agreement that something beyond evolution is responsible for this. And this is the showstopper because it suggests an intentionality, and underlying an intentionality, it implies a purpose. And our scientists today are having a hard time coming to terms with a biology that resulted from any kind of an intention or a purpose. So the reason this is important, We appeared 200,000 years ago. We've got these extraordinary capabilities, and now they're not recognized, they're not embraced. And there is a movement to replace our natural biology with technology, with computer chips in the brain that communicate with the hard drives of our computers, with alternate chemicals in the blood that redefine what a human blood type is all about, with wires under our skin, with nanoparticles. There is a movement to replace our natural biology. And let me share with you, and I'm not against technology. I worked in the Star Wars Defense Initiative during the Cold War. I've seen lasers, radar systems. I am not anti-tech. Here, this is the essence of our conversation, Kimberly. When we replace our unique biology with machines and AI and tech, our natural abilities begin to atrophy. Our neural connections begin to decouple, and we begin to, cells cease to function. Fertility rates drop. We're seeing this happening in Japan right now. Digital intimacy is having a direct impact on the birth rate in the Japanese culture, and they know this. Women are less fertile, sperm counts are dropping in men. The birth rate now is lower than the mortality rate. They're dying faster than they're making babies. It's not 100% because of this. This is a big contributor to it. When, we've all heard this, use it or to lose it. If we begin to replace mirror neurons with computer chips in our neocortex, for example, or begin to replace these subtle functions. I mean, think about this. We communicate with subtle energies and subtle forms of life by tuning our nervous system, scaling our perceptions to these subtle forms of energy. When we begin to replace our natural biology with technology, we begin to lose that. Okay, it happens in one generation, maybe for fun, maybe for recreation. Maybe young people say, hey, I want a chip in my brain so I can do my gaming without using a keyboard. And that's possible now. But here's the implication. The next generation, our body says, oh, we no longer need that function. And we begin to erode and lose the very capabilities that give us our humanness. And my question is, how much of ourselves are we going to give away to the technology? We cannot answer that until we know who we are. And we're only beginning to understand what it means to be human. So my work, where my passion is right now, the implementation and the acceptance, the technology is happening faster than the morality of how it's applied. And we're at this crossroad right now. This generation, it's not going to take long. This generation must determine what are the human values that we cherish in our species, that we choose to make the foundation around the choices of technology. Because if we don't make that decision and we don't identify those values very quickly, they will be lost. And once they are lost in a species, they are lost forever. And that is the power of this conversation. That's why I'm so appreciative of you inviting me here to talk about it. Transhumanism, you talked about the three phases, the augmented biology, a titanium hip, contact lenses. We all do that. There's nothing wrong with it. The second level is where the thinking is that the body is so flawed that we must replace the body. We keep the brain, but we replace the body, and either replace the body robotically or with some other form of life. The third form is really interesting, and I think it betrays the thinking underlying transhumanism, because the thinking is that we can be reduced to ones and zeros and stored, our essence, on a computer chip for immortality. And I think ultimately the transhumanists, the really hardcore transhumanists, are afraid of death. And what they have not understood is that they already possess the soft technology that gives them lifespans at least in hundreds of years, possibly immortal. It's even more advanced than they've been led to believe because it is a soft technology. We are the very technology that they're trying to implement. So wires, chips, chemicals, they mimic who we already are. And that's what I'm just going to stop right here. And I'll say, this is something I want everyone to really consider, that we are technology. We are soft technology, the very technology that we've been waiting for. The world changed. And if we're ever going to embrace the deep truth of our humanness, now is the time to do that. And I think that'll lay the foundation for our conversation, Kimberly.
Oh, I'm so grateful. This is reflects the conversation that is always so empowering for me when I talk to you, because you go right to the heart of the matter. And I think it's exactly the case that when we understand who we are, then we can determine consciously and deliberately where we want to go. And to me, awe is sort of the only appropriate response to to our humanness and what is possible, and the notion that we would replace that natural immunity and capacity with something conceived by a human brain only is just such a limited notion. So I'm very grateful for the science behind this and for you using your vast intelligence and research capacities on behalf of this.
Well, thank you, Kimberly. It was very, very quick, very high level. I want us to give a launching point for our conversation today, but I want people to know what I've shared with you. This isn't my 100% my opinion. The peer-reviewed science is documented in the back of the book that used to be called Human by Design, was the original title. My publisher, Hay House, opted to change that title for a couple of different reasons. It is now called The Science of Self-Empowerment. Same book, same content. If you go to the back of the book, that peer-reviewed research is in there. People want to learn more, because people say to me in the events, live conferences, how come we don't know about this? How come we've never heard about this? Why are we teaching our children false assumptions of an obsolete science when we know it's a lie? We know it's not true. And we're asking them to solve the problems that we're leaving through the thinking that led to the problems we're leaving. So, so Kimberly, I'm going to follow your lead. Where do you want to go with this? And Foster, where would you guys like to go with this?
Greg, thank you very much for that download. It was chilling, it was touching, and it was very inspiring at the same time. So it's a perfect kind of jumping off place. But what I want to do before we go further in our heads on this is to bring in our hardest for a musical interlude, so that everybody can kind of process what they just got. If I have other questions that are coming up, send those questions in, and then you and Kimberly and I'll have a roundtable deep dive into this after the music. But Leandro, let's bring on the crew from Bali. So there they are. Hey, it's so good to see you.
So good to see you. Wow.
Well, let me introduce you guys before we jump in here. First of all, the name for this particular trio is Luminous Nectar. If you tried to think, how could we add some luminous nectar to this conversation, I can't imagine a better way to do it. And specifically, Jess Magic is a muse for today's generation of change makers. And I can confirm that. More than a singer, Jess is a musical storyteller. She creates compelling opportunities for people to interact with life from an open heart. And I've been a part of those experiences. And I wish we had, a couple of hours for y'all to dive in to the actual experience of joining in her music. This will be a taste of it today. The main thing I personally would like to say about Jess is, for me, she's a courageous singer-songwriter. She's a heartist, and what I would refer to as a music shaman who is not afraid to see truth and sing it to the world. She also said in our conversation on our tech check setting up for this, she said, one time Kimberly said to me, this infinity is a really big deal. And along the same lines yesterday, Jess spontaneously said, the unified field is really, really, really a thing. because of experiences that she's been having. So I love the way we're getting this science in lay people's terms. So, so let me go on to introduce Jenna. Jenna Lee Prince. She helps women move beyond and above addiction and anxiety so they can embody their highest, wildest, and most divine nature and live the sexiest life ever. Bringing love to the world through her passion for music, sweat, community, and consciousness. She's a dancer, fitness trainer, yogi songstress. So Jenna, welcome. Thanks for taking the time in the middle of your night.
Thank you.
Okay, and then I'll introduce Kita, and then you can say whatever you want by way of introducing what you're going to play for us. So I asked Kita, I just met Kita yesterday, and I said, what would you want thousands of people to know about you if they're meeting you for the first time? He said, he told me that he's been on a mission like ours for 20 years. And I sure want to hear more about that at some other time, Kita. But I love the alignment. And he said he's been trying to live in harmony with our world and providing others access to the tools in this doula process. For anyone who doesn't know what a doula is, in English, a doula is someone who helps with the birth process and of a co-midwife. So welcome, Kita. Good to have you all aboard. And any of the three of you, what would you like to say by way of making yourself present and introducing what you're going to share?
You're such a gem, Foster and Kimberly and Greg. I think this is maybe the third time that I've gotten to offer a song after you've given this epic download, all different types of downloads. But the unified field comment that I said to Foster yesterday came from a story with another experience I had with Greg, where I was like, I'm following Gregg Braden. So what's going to want to come through to help people integrate what he just shared? And the last time it happened, it was a profound story that can get into it another time. But this time it happened again. And the song that we're going to share is called This Is My Life. And it's really a song about reclamation, reclaiming our sovereignty, and going inside into our internal biological technology to recognize what we can own inside of ourselves, what we can claim inside of ourselves. And this song was written as a tool and as a technology for those times that we forget or we start to lose our center or lose ourselves. This song is a really simple song. I encourage you to sing along from home. And it's a reclamation song of our sovereignty. So I think there'll be little pieces of it that will mirror a little bit of what Kimberly and Greg were just talking about. And so I invite you to listen and find, though the words are simple, I feel the meaning kind of encompasses everything that's just been talked about. And so we offer this to each one of you out there as a tool when you're going through those moments where you're searching for your own center. And a reminder, this song is a tool for you to find your way back home to what's inherently yours.
Thank you.
sing this chant, Om Mani Padme Hum, and feel yourself using your voice as a technology to alchemize your own energetic state, your internal resonance, allowing yourself to relax, ground, and expand into a deeper place of internal coherence and compassion. Open your heart. Open your soul. So that you could have more love in your life than you ever know. Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. This is my life, and I'm gonna choose it. This is my time. I decide how to use it. Nobody can take my grace away. Nobody can take my grace away. This is my life, and I'm not gonna lose it. This is my freedom. I decide how to use it. Nobody can take my spirit away. Nobody can take my spirit away. My essence. Nobody can take my essence away. Let's sing it all together. My fire. Nobody can take my fire away. My power. Nobody can take my power away. My love. Nobody can take my love away. My body. Nobody can take my body away. My spirit. Nobody can take my spirit away. Nobody can take my spirit away. A toast and a celebration for your sovereign reclamation.
The song, the lyrics, your lighting is fantastic. That was the perfect song for right then. So thank you, and we'll see you again shortly.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's dive back into the discussion.
Yeah.
One of the things that I would like to ask you, Gregg, it was very powerful when you talked about the fear of mortality that you perceive in people, a lot of people who are leading the transhumanist movement. In our research, we've come to the same thing. I'm actually very concerned that people with trillions of dollars and massive companies working on this project are still working on it from the point of view of how can we avoid completing our own soul work. So it becomes a huge video game to actually, maybe we can change biology, maybe we can change consciousness, maybe we can change humanity, and meanwhile, not deal with the fear that they didn't satisfy their father's expectations, or they want to bring their mother back from the dead, or something like that. So the question I want to ask you is, and this is a huge one, but I think for me, it's the central one, is what would you say are the major guidelines for how humanity can really honor the fabulous benefits of technology, while at the same time completing our soul work so that we can be safe and we can still have love and intimacy and discovery in our biology and in the metaphysical consciousness on planet Earth?
Well, it's a big question, Foster. You know, it's a good question. And there's so many ways to answer that question. And I think it all comes down to the way I began that presentation. The people that are perpetuating the thinking around this technology, it's based upon their story. It's based upon the way they have been led to think about themselves personally, about the way they've been led to think of human in general. We are taught and indoctrinated from an early age that we are essentially the product of lucky biology, a fluke of nature, something that just happened to occur a long time ago, and that random mutations and competition and conflict have allowed us to transcend all other species. This is Darwin's idea of survival of the strongest. So, you know, in my opinion, I'm not a Darwin basher. He could not have possibly known in his day, in 1859, when he released his book on Origin of Species, he couldn't have possibly known then what we know now. And I think where Darwin went wrong, where he made his mistake, is he took his observations in one location on Earth, in one moment in time, for a certain species of birds, and he extrapolated to all locations on Earth throughout all time for all species. And the evidence simply doesn't support that. And Darwin was the first to acknowledge. He said, I am just putting forward an idea. He said, the moment the data no longer supports my idea, you have to let it go and develop a new idea. So he was okay with that. It's the academic world. There is a fight, there is a battle to maintain what is called the standard model in the scientific community, the standard model of the universe. We're taught that we're the product of a dead, inert universe, and that we are the product of random mutations of lucky biology. The new science is showing us just the opposite. The universe is alive, it is conscious, it is intelligent, and that we are the product of an intentional act of intervention. Now, as a scientist, I can't say, the evidence doesn't say who or what, but as a scientist, I have to say that there was an intervention 200,000 years ago. These are the facts that are either being denied or that these people are not aware of. Where I am concerned, and you mentioned this, you hit it right on, Foster, is if these people want to pursue this for their own personal edification, because of their own fears and their own experiences, more power to them. God bless them. My concern is that the people that are espousing these this way of thinking, believe it's not only good for them, but it's good for everyone on the planet. So their belief systems are being imposed upon us through technology that is not being regulated. And I have to say, Elon Musk, an amazing man. He is young, relatively young. He is innovative. He's a visionary. He's pushing the boundaries of technology. And I've seen a couple of interviews with him recently where he is totally on board with everything we're saying here. What he's saying is this. He's saying, as the CEO of technological companies, I have to push forward. I have to break those barriers, break those boundaries to stay competitive with other nations and with other companies. But he said, someone needs to rein in this technology. We need to be regulated, specifically AI. And his exact words were, he says, I'm afraid of where the AI, unregulated AI, is going to lead us. So he said, I'm going to keep pushing the boundaries, but he's pleading for regulation to reel this in.
I think we actually have a clip of one of those interviews, just a little segment from it. Leandro, can you play that one?
Yeah, and then come on back to the conversation. That'd be good.
I think the danger of AI is much greater than the danger of nuclear warheads by a lot. And nobody would suggest that we allow anyone to just build nuclear warheads if they want. That would be insane. And mark my words, AI is far more dangerous than nukes. Far. So why do we have no regulatory oversight? This is insane. I'm not really all that worried about the short-term stuff. Things that are, like narrow AI is not a species-level risk. It will result in dislocation, in lost jobs, and sort of better weaponry and that kind of thing. But it is not a fundamental species-level risk, whereas digital superintelligence is. So it's really all about laying the groundwork to make sure that if humanity collectively decides that creating digital superintelligence is the right move, then we should do so very, very carefully. Very, very carefully.
Yeah, very, very carefully.
I think that's really it, because this notion of a species-wide risk that humanity is going to make some decision about, humanity needs to be informed. And I think for me, the power of your message is that it's up to us. We have the capacity to do everything that we need to do. We have that within us biologically, in terms of our consciousness, in terms of our capacity to relate to one another. We actually can do this, but the notion that someone else is going to do it for us, I think we understand now isn't the case. And this, the transhumanist movement and this stuff Musk is talking about with unregulated AI development, Kurzweil is the head of Google's Department of Engineering. They have trillions of dollars. They've built an economy on it. So it's a very, well-funded, well-developed worldview. And for me, one of the things that I used as the sort of guiding mission in the first series was how to go about understanding this in terms of worldview without being afraid of it, without losing the connection, but to understand, Kurzweil had his dad frozen in order to bring him back to life. This fear of death and actually fear of cycles and reflection and downtime and those things that I believe and experience enhance our human qualities. That loss is actually something that we develop capacities as a result of. So the notion of mitigating all loss it's like taking away fall from the seasons. There's meant to be a downtime. So I think this understanding the worldview is critical.
Well, I think that's exactly where this is going, and Foster alluded to that in the question. I think one of the most powerful things that we can do is with our young people, begin sharing with them the the facts of what the new science is revealing alongside the old ideas. I'm not saying throw the old ideas out, but let our young people choose for themselves. Let them see, for example, that the fundamental rule of nature is based on cooperation, not competition. How does that change the way they think about themselves and their friends and the way they solve their problems? You know, Darwin published his ideas and they were very quickly accepted in 1859. That is the time our society was being formed. So it's no surprise that our economic system is built upon survival of the strongest, that our corporate model is based upon survival of the strongest, and that we have been led to think in this way. So now that we are at this point, and COVID has been a powerful catalyst, probably would have happened anyway, but I think COVID has accelerated everything. We're at this point where we get to see what works and what doesn't. And the things that don't work are buckling and collapsing. The economic system right now is buckling, and they're trying to patch it up and hold it together, and they don't want people to know about it. The way that we function as society. And what we're beginning to see is that the old ideas of centralized everything are breaking down, and they're giving away to the indigenous view of localized living. Localized health, localized economies, localized food, localized energy.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna go out on a limb here to answer this question, because there's another facet, and I'm just gonna throw it out there, and some people may embrace it, some may not. A dear friend of mine, a number of my friends are therapists, and they are specializing in a therapy to help people who believe they've had the experience of being abducted by life forms from other worlds. So alien abductions. You know, John Mack, Harvard University, began legitimizing this whole concept. And those same therapists are also working with contactees who believe they're being contacted by people, us, from our own future. So those are two very, very different kinds of experiences that there is a rise in the number of cases where people believe either they are abducted by beings from another world or by us from our future, but there's a common denominator in both of these. Because when they ask, why have you come from our future back to now, to this point? Why not 50 years ago in World War II and stop the hurt? You know, why now? Or when they ask the alien beings on a craft, why me? And why are you interested in us humans? The answer is the same. And they both say that you now, in this year, this era, you are at a point in your technological development where we were in ours, and you are about to make choices like the ones that we made. We chose technology and we lost ourselves in the technology, and we want back the essence of what it means to be a biological being. We want the emotions. We want the ability to conceive through human intimate contact, not in a technological test tube, and not being edited by CRISPR gene editing technology that determines our characteristics. So whether you believe that or not, I'm talking to our audience here, it's another facet of this conversation supporting that we are at a crossroad. Yeah. And we're making choices, and it's not going to drag on for generations. It cannot. The choices that we make now, we and Foster, I think this is the answer ultimately to your conversation. We must choose the values that we cherish as a species. What is it about our humanness that we are not willing to give away to the technology to compromise? We can't do that until we know who we are. And right. That is where the new science is so exciting. But when I talk to the transhumanists, I've had conversations with them, and they say, you know, human relationships are messy and they're a waste of time. You have arguments, you have disagreements, you have hurt and jealousy and anger. Let's be efficient and get rid of all that. Human conception involves these relationships that you have to deal with. Technology can fix all that. Let's get away from that. And this is their thinking. But the very emotions, and this applies to all of us, what the Tibetans told me when I was studying and living with them in the monasteries was, and this is so powerful, the depth of our hurt teaches us our capacity to love. And our capacity to love is the switch that enables the freedom of this inner technology. So the question is, do we love ourselves enough? Do we love ourselves enough to claim the values and to make them the foundation so that all the technological decisions revolve around them? Do we cherish and love ourselves enough to do that? And we're answering that question by the choices we make and the laws that we enact and the policies that we embrace right now.
So by way of summary, Gregg, could you give us your top 3 things you think human beings should keep during this transition?
Sure. There is a movement in the United Nations community that I've been involved with since 2012. It is called the Sustainable Development Goals for 2030. The goals themselves are beautiful. The methods to get to the goals are frightening, in my opinion.
Yes.
So I am, along with a number of other, and I would mention some of the names, I want to respect their privacy, but a lot of very well-known scientists, social architects, and authors and spiritual leaders are involved in this with me. We're pushing back on the methodology for this very same reason. We want to reduce poverty, and we want to reduce childhood disease, and we want women's health and women's rights. But the question is, at what price, at what cost are we willing to achieve these goals by the year 2030? And this is where my message to them is the same as it is to this question now. It's about the values that we cherish. I think human life must be a priority. It must be a value.
Right.
And when you think that you're the product of random mutations, it's hard to value life.
Right.
This is why young people don't have, not all young people, but there's a prevalence in some populations of young people to abuse and destroy their bodies because they've never been taught that there's anything special about their bodies. So it's to use and abuse and throw away.
Right.
Childhood suicides are at an all-time high right now. Teen suicides. And there's a whole conversation.
Number one is we keep human life.
So let's just do this. Human life, freedom, imagination, creativity, community. These are the values that we threaten, that we stand to lose if we embrace the technology, the surveillance, and all of the things that go along with that. These are the fundamental values. Freedom to create and imagine and express through our art and our music, that we stand to lose those very, very values to gain these goals being implemented so that somebody can tick it off on a box and say, look, we accomplished this. Yeah, but at what price? At what cost? Did we do that? Yeah.
I think one of the very practical ways that we get to protect these things is by guarding against there being any mandatory anything, right? That we don't get to be made to do something that someone else thinks is a good idea that affects our fundamental biology or our fundamental behavior with one another. If we want to gather together, if we want to protect the sovereignty of our humanness and each person's engagement with technology is a very personal decision. And our right to be fully informed about that. And one of the things that I really appreciated, in our first 2 series, which as I mentioned, there are snippets of those on YouTube and that you can see in the show notes. And also it's the reason we have Thrive 2 going free right now is because we really want people to have this sense of who we are and what's possible. Gregg's in Thrive 2 also because of bringing this message to help people understand our capacity and to have that appropriate understanding of who we are allows us to rise to the occasion now and say, I trust my own immunity. I trust my right, and I'm going to protect my right to stay human. And so that's where the Superhumans Inc. and Christians work comes in with data ownership that says if you want to engage in some kind of technological interface, that's fine, but you get to know exactly what it is. You own that data, because right now a lot of what happens is the data is used to train the AI with this ultimate vision of being able to take over. And understanding this is sort of odd and sometimes gruesome as the whole subject can be. It's very important to be informed, not to feel bad about what some people are doing, but to understand what fear can do and has done to some people in these positions, well-funded positions of power, so that we just simply organize together to draw the line and say, no, we won't participate in that, and we won't allow it to be done to others, even if it's something we choose for ourselves.
I think so. Well, first I'm going to back off. Yes, Kimberly, everything you said. Foster, did I answer your question about the values? You asked me what I felt we should claim. What was
Yes, beautifully. And some people are putting into chat their own values like that. It's a great conversation for us all to be having.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I want to make sure I honored the answer to that question. So, Kimberly, there's a dangerous game that's unfolding right now, and it's a game where our young people, specifically, and in general, people, our communities in general, are being taught to fear and hate the things that stand in the way of moving toward a certain direction or a certain agenda, rather than offering people the life-affirming, uplifting possibilities that we would naturally be attracted to move toward. Yeah. So I think the powers that you're talking about, they don't trust that we make the right decisions, and they're saying we need to make those decisions for them. So carbon dioxide is a perfect example. As a geologist in climate change, we could have a whole conversation about this. Climate change is a fact. We've been saying it I've been in the industry for 50 years. We've been saying 48 years. We've been saying climate change is a fact. We know what's causing it. Humans have contributed, but if there are no humans, we would still have climate change. In the geologic record, we see that.
Right.
So carbon dioxide is being labeled as a poison. And I know young people in our local communities are afraid of it, they hate it, and they feel empowered to destroy any property or business that is emitting carbon dioxide because of the fear and the hate. On the one hand, what they're not being taught is that life cannot exist without carbon dioxide. And if the carbon dioxide levels of Earth drop below 180 parts per million, we're in trouble. And we've seen that in the geologic record, but they're not being taught that. But you can see the difference. Rather than informing them and helping them to think critically and make their own decisions, they're being fed information that frightens them and empowers them to do things to other people in their mind. These things are justified. So it's a very dangerous way of thinking. Buckminster Fuller, who I have tremendous respect for, I think he said this best. He said, if you want to bring about change in the world, he said, you're never going to bring about change by fighting what you don't want. Find a new way, a better way of living and of doing things. People will follow that and they will let the old way go. You don't have to fight it. It collapses under the weight of its own insolvency, its own, it just doesn't work. Right. And so I think what we're seeing here, and it's not going to take long, we're seeing it in this generation, is we're seeing two parallel societies emerging. And it's not like one's on one side of town and one's on the other. It's happening within the same household, at the same dinner table. We're seeing one path where people are all in on everything. They're all in on the tech, on the AI, on everything that's being recommended by the powers that be. And then we're seeing another path. It's really interesting, where some of these people were in up to a point, but it has gone so far and it's gotten so ridiculous. And people are saying, wait a minute, something doesn't feel right. I can't put my finger exactly on what or some people say, I know exactly what it is. This doesn't feel right. And they're choosing another path, going back to basics, more holistic ways of living, more localized ways of living, growing their own food, their grandmother's remedies for colds and flu and virus and everything else. And these two paths are happening simultaneously. And I'll tell you what's going to happen is we're going to check each other out, and we're going to say who's happier, who's healthier, who's more fulfilled in their lives, whose children are more fulfilled and healthy. And the answer to that question ultimately, I think, will be what unifies us. We're on a path of polarity right now. It's going to be difficult to unify, but I think because we're going to say we want the same thing. We want life, creativity. We want freedoms. And it's really interesting to see this unfolding right now. But I think ultimately we're going to see, it's an experiment with technology. And I think we're going to see very quickly where it leads. The question is, will we have the freedom to choose in our own lives? And this is the body sovereignty that you're talking about.
I love the way that you said that. The thriving is magnetic. We're born to thrive. We just need to keep the freedom to choose. And as long as people are free to choose, I'm confident also that it will go there. I want to bring up one more thing before we open it up we got lots of questions. The kind of the elephant in the room here for me is, it's stunning what you said about the DNA kind of showing up 200,000 years ago, full-fledged. And so the obvious question is, who do you think did the design and sort of placement of that DNA?
Yeah, that's a whole conversation we could have around that, Foster. So as a scientist, excuse me, with peer-reviewed data, what I can say to you is the odds are overwhelming that we are not the product of a natural evolutionary process. Now, doesn't mean evolution. I believe there is an evolution in consciousness. We definitely are thinking different than we did 200,000 years ago. Our bodies have not changed. And there are biologists that have a hard time with that. And it's not with me they're having a hard time. It's with the data from the new DNA, the ability to extract and compare that DNA. So we have to say there was an intervention. And I'm very comfortable saying an intervention. Where the pushback comes is there's a thinking it's binary. If it's not evolution, then you're talking about religion. I'm not saying that at all. I think the religion may be telling us in a very ancient language, in the best way that they knew how, an experience they had or something that they saw.
Yeah.
I think that we are the product of an intervention. I can't say for sure who. And the reason it's hard to have this conversation is because there's another conversation that feeds into this about whether or not we are in what's called a base reality, or if we are in a virtual simulation or a virtual reality. And then that conversation helps to inform us of who they may be. My sense is, and I'll answer the question, but it may not make sense, I think it's us. I think we are the designers. I believe that we are the product of a highly advanced technological civilization who have moved in a certain direction. We've run into some problems, and we are exploring consciousness in conscious ways of solving those problems. I think that's why most people watching this have always felt a little different from the people around them. They've always felt like they were a pioneer. They look at the world differently. They're not satisfied with the traditional story because they know there's something more there. I think we are pioneers. We have chosen to explore different realities because we're trying to solve some big problems. And I do a whole presentation on what this is and the science that supports. The science is about 98% certain we are not in a base reality. So you look at the themes, not the specifics, but the themes of the problems, and they all boil down to dark and light, war and peace, and those kinds of things, and how we go about working to solve our problems. So
Okay.
now it depends on who you ask. The
Yeah.
Sumerians have their story, the Egyptians have their story, the Hindus have their story, the Christians have their story, the Native Americans, the Andeans, the Mayans, they all have their stories, and all of them, to a T, say that we are the product of an intervention
Yes.
from a higher intelligence.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I look forward to having that deeper conversation, but I agree with everything that you said about that. I want to transition into the opening questions to the group. And one that came in while you were talking from Floyd said Braden is assuming non-physical reality without evidence for that in his system. So talk a little bit about the role of the metaphysical and how it relates to science, because especially I think that that's one of the cruxes of the danger of so-called turning over our consciousness to digital, technology, is that it's completely ignoring the conversation about the metaphysical. And many of the top people in AI that we've talked to, Kimberly and I, have absolutely zero sense of the metaphysical at all. So
Well, I'll tell you
how deep
that goes. I was at the CERN superconducting super collider in Geneva, Switzerland, doing a presentation and also witnessing an experiment that was there. And when I talked to the physicists, this is why physics is up against a roadblock right now. We have right now 4 fundamental forces that physicists have identified. That is gravity, electromagnetic force, the strong and the weak nuclear force, that cannot be unified. They cannot be unified because they've left out precisely what Floyd is talking about and what you and I are talking about. And until they acknowledge what we're calling consciousness, for lack of a better word, or until they acknowledge this force underlying all of these other experiences, I think they're going to have a real tough time. They're working with string theory, and string theory has these variables, and they say, well, if I make this variable this number, I don't know why it's that number, but that number works. Okay, everything works. Or if I throw time out of the equation, right, all of the other things work. It's that pesky time, Right. So this is the fundamental quest of unifying the forces of physics, and why we're looking at this now. I'm not sure I understand exactly what Floyd was asking me, but that's my response to what you have just said.
I want to say something about that too, which is that's why we spent so much time on unifying these forces and introducing this into the conversation in Thrive 2, and why we're having it go free now for people all over in 15 languages to see it, is because this is a critical part of the understanding. When you understand the interface of consciousness and this visible world, and the impacts of and the interface of all of it, and that is so much the story of Thrive 2, the unification of this. We say the star of Thrive 2 is the unified field. Right. Because it informs everything. So I just want to remind people to sign up for that and see it, because it really is empowering of this conversation, exactly where we get to take 2 hours to actually unpack it in a way that it deserves, because it's very hard to hit upon this so quickly, but really valuable.
Thank you for that, Kimberly. We're talking about the science. Now, the social implications. I was doing a live event before COVID, pre-COVID, in the Washington, D.C. area, just outside the Beltway. And you never know who's going to show up to a D.C. program. And there were some guys in the back of the room, and in the building, they were all wearing dark sunglasses, and they all had their, little earpieces and dark suits. And they didn't sit down. They were standing in the back of the room. And so I said right off, if there's anyone here that thinks I'm going to talk about like, secret governments and stuff like that. I'm not. So you can leave. And all of them left except one. So during the break, this gentleman, he came up to me and I'm going to share his language. It was really interesting. I asked him, I said, why are you here? And do you have a problem with what I'm saying? And he says, not at all. He says, we want people to understand what you're saying. We don't have the language. We don't know how to share this without frightening people. And he said, and this is where it gets interesting. He said, there was a time that we thought we understood what was happening, and we had a pretty good handle on where society and civilization was going. Now, I don't know who we is. This is what he said. And this is the language. He said, but something has gone horribly awry, and we don't understand what's happening, and we would like to know what your take is on that. And I said, it's very easy, and it's the answer to your question, Floyd, and to your question, Foster. I said, what you did not factor into the algorithms was consciousness.
Yeah.
Consciousness is not a static variable. It is a dynamic function, and it is not linear. And consciousness is expanding and growing, and it is shifting our perceptions and the way we see the world. So you cannot plan in a linear model what society is going to look like with a consciousness that is blossoming the way it is right now. And he said, oh, okay. And he hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, Kimberly and I hosted a top-level AI expert and author when he was just starting out on a book tour about the benefits of turning over human consciousness to the robots. And he had come, he wanted to meet us and get a testimonial for his book. And I had read his book, and I said, I don't think that I'll be able to support this book from what you're saying in here, but I'd like to meet you and talk. And so he came and spent a couple of days with us. And we got to this crux in the conversation where he had absolutely zero awareness or even openness to the metaphysical conversation. And I said, well, you're a very bright guy. He was one of the top academics in China. And I said, so follow the science here. I said, your body is made up of all these cells, which are made up of the molecules, which is made up of the atoms. And you get down to the atoms and you got these particles now, but scientists are pretty much agreed now they're just whirlpools in a sea of infinite energy. So there's actually no thing there. And yet his first name was Ted. I said, yet Ted has been there all along, even though every cell in Ted's body was replaced in the last 7 years. So who is Ted if you actually aren't made up of things and you've been here even when your entire body was replaced? And he just stopped. And to his credit, he said, I've never even had that thought. And then at the end of the night, after we talked about interdimensional communication and channeling and intuition and psychic diagnosis and healing and all this type of stuff, when we said goodnight, to his credit, he said, this metaphysical thing, you may be onto something really big here.
Did he have to go back and write a new chapter for his book?
He actually stopped his book tour. He was getting such pushback the way he hadn't anticipated at all. Like you said, these guys are living in a bubble and they just don't know any thinking that's outside of this deterministic stuff.
And that's precisely the point, Foster, because we are so finely tuned and we have the ability to hone how we attune our genes, our DNA, our cells through self-regulation and human emotion. And when we turn that over to a computer chip, a perfect example, Elon Musk has a company now called Neuralink. It's not a theory, it's out there right now. It's the first chip to be implanted into the human brain where the neurons in the brain actually interface with a port on the chip. And the purpose of this chip is to connect the human brain to the computer bypassing the keyboard. There's no physical connection. It's kind of like, it's not really Bluetooth, but it's kind of that idea. Young people, when they hear that, they say, sweet. I can game with my friends without ever touching a keyboard, because they've never been taught to understand that they have within their neocortex neurons that perform very similar. If you want to download information like on the Matrix, like Neo plugged in to a computer we use mirror neurons and we can learn super learning, super memory. And when we stop using those abilities, the neural connections, the chemicals that hold those neurons in harmony and in the network, they begin to dissolve because they feel they're no longer needed. So
Yeah.
we're about to give away the essence of what it means to be human before we even know what that is,
Right.
in the belief that we are flawed and limited beings. And this is why I think it's important. And I'm not saying what's right, what's wrong. I never tried to convince or persuade anyone of that, but I will passionately try to convince my scientific colleagues that there's more to us than we've been led to believe. And here's the thing. All of this technology that's being built, it mimics what we already do, including our immune response.
Yeah.
And in what way, if we fix and tailor an immune response for one particular contagion, I have no doubt that it will be successful. The question is, to what degree, if any, or how does that impact our ability to respond to a world of contagions 5 years down? We have 200,000 years of contagion history behind us, where we have programmed our bodies, our soft technology, relatively successfully. When we intervene in that, what is the impact of that intervention? And the answer is we don't know. And we have to say that. We also have to say that we are the technology that we're building outside of our bodies. And if you really begin to look at everything that way, it changes what we think. Now, it doesn't mean that it's right, wrong, good, or bad to augment or with a vaccine or with anything else. That's a very personal decision, but the decision is being made consciously on facts rather than being frightened into making that decision. And I think that's an important distinction.
Let me jump in with a related question. Jeanette wrote in and said, how does DNA relate to our consciousness when we leave our bodies or ascend to higher dimensions? Does it apply only to the physical or go with us as the Akashic?
The answer to that question is it depends on how we leave. No, it's very true, because there is one path of leaving where we separate consciousness from the vehicle, from this body. And we call that death. And our essence, we are led to believe, continues in another form. If you subscribe to the simulation theory, it means that we've gone back to the base reality. Okay, so we're no longer projected into our avatar. There is another path where consciousness and the body, the line between consciousness and the body, dissolves, and we're able to transcend with the body into another realm or another form of life, because we recognized our ability to do that. And I'm not saying one's right, wrong, good, or bad. What I've seen is so many people, there's so much hurt in the world, Foster. There's a lot of hurt in this world, and relatively few tools to deal with that hurt. So a lot of spiritual gurus, even friends of mine, colleagues, they're focused on trying to get out of here, when the whole point is to be here to find the levels of mastery, not to run away from the hurt, but to recognize what that hurt, why the hurt hurts us, and to transcend that. And when we do that, it has chemical implications in our body that allow us to transcend the very things that are hurting us. It's a very, very different way of thinking. And my biology friends, they're certainly not taught that, and it's not their fault. It's just not there's an indoctrination that has happened for the better part of the 20th century, leading us to believe that we are flawed and imperfect, paving the way for the technology to feel that it is needed. Whereas if we had been indoctrinated to understand, for example, every organ in the human body now is documented with the ability to stop the disease, to heal the disease, and to regenerate what the disease has taken. All right, spinal cord tissue, brain tissue, pancreatic tissue, heart tissue, all of them, blood, everything has been documented with the ability to heal and transcend the disease if it's given the right environment. That environment can be chemical, it can be nutritional, it can be emotional, it can be a combination of all of those. That is a sophisticated technology to be able to self-regulate this biology, and that simply isn't taught.
Well, that's a perfect lead into the next question. At least half a dozen people have written in this question, which boils down to, what role do you see COVID-19 playing in this conversation about the transhumanist agenda?
Yeah, COVID-19 has pushed it front and center. It is a catalyst. It's a conversation that was happening subtly in some segments of society, in some segments of technology. Now it's up for everybody, because everyone will have to make a choice in terms of how they respond to whatever it is that's out there. I think there's more than one COVID that is out there. We've got the variants. There may be even something else going on. And I think what it really comes down to, it's a very fundamental, yet it's a difficult question for some people. Do we love ourselves enough to live our lives in a way and to give our bodies what they need to be at their best, to do what they are made to do? The people that are afraid are the people with comorbidities. The comorbidities typically come from choices of lifestyle and society, and I'm not judging them right, wrong, good, or bad. I'll give you a perfect example. I've taken groups into the Andes Mountains in Peru. We just, because of COVID, we had to cancel this year. But it would have been my 37th trip in 35 years. So I have a history, a continuity of seeing what's happened in the culture. When they brought in fast food into the main plaza in the capital of Cusco, fried foods, and I won't name the name brands, but you all probably guess what they are. And there was like fried food row, and all of a sudden the healthy young people that would go there after school every day, diabetes, obesity, hypertension, and these are the communities that were hit the hardest with COVID. So it's a hard conversation, but it's one that we can have without judgment. Objectively, we can say, if you live in this way, you become susceptible to these things. Do you love yourself enough to give your body what it needs to do what it knows how to do? And I think the answer to that question informs us as to the choices that we make when the choices are available. Now, I have friends who have undergone chemo and radiation in the last year, and we're told that those are comorbidities, and they feel better knowing that they have some chemical support. And that's what technology is for. More power to them. I'm glad they have it if they choose to have that, to feel better. And the ones I have known so far, they've done really well with it. But I don't think it's one size fits all. I don't think.
Yeah, I think that note of choice is a great place to pause for now and bring back our luminous nectar for one more song.
I want to say also, I want to acknowledge that we're getting questions from the YouTube group via chat. So even though we're working out this technology for the first time of interfacing between Zoom and YouTube, we are getting all of that fed into us, and we appreciate your participation and any patience that's required for learning about this. And I also want to say we will be back after this with more announcements and time with Gregg. So thank you.
Okay, Leandro, can you bring Jess and Jen and Kita back?
And maybe turn it down a little and see if that helps.
Whoops. So how are you guys doing? Are you ready?
Super ready.
Okay,
Sorry to
tell us a
interrupt,
little
but
bit about this song.
sorry to interrupt, guys, but I understand you have the audio sorted out with Ian, so yeah, please do not adjust it from where it was.
We won't. Just there's going to be a little reverb while I talk because it's going to go into the singing. So just bear with that, but we're going to just keep it right there. So you can just imagine we're in a huge cave here in Bali, beaming you across the ocean. So this next song is called Smoke and Mirrors. And this song came through in April of last year, really as things were getting hot all over the planet in every way, with COVID, with all of the racial injustice that was blowing up in the US, with cities burning, it felt like a moment where the veils were getting thin and people were starting to really get shaken up and waken up in a more mainstream level. And so this song came through just one verse and one chorus at that time that was really almost designed to be, I was sharing with Foster yesterday, almost designed to be a bed for people as they were getting blasted with information like what's being shared, what Kimberly's been bringing, this information. This song was designed to be a bed to almost catch people as they fell out of that, as their reality got shaken up. And then almost as though the bed was a soft landing and then a spring of resilience to stand back up in a new way. So we just had another verse come through yesterday or 2 days ago after talking with you more. And then the last part of this song is unwritten, and really what's gonna happen is we're gonna open up to a freestyle. And we're just gonna see what comes through based on everything that's been shared and the essence that's been shared. So really just taking in the wisdom, the questions, the curiosities, the feeling tone of what's been shared so far, and just we're gonna kind of get out of the way and see what life wants to, what wants to be brought through. So it's a bit of a trust fall. So yeah, and I invite you to practice this this embodiment of the unified field by sending us your thoughts, your feelings as we're singing, because you never know how powerful your ability to transmit is. And I think that speaks to some of what Gregg is alluding to around we haven't even discovered the full potential of our inner natural technology. And I believe that telepathy personally is actually part of our technology that we haven't even tapped into yet, but I think we get it in these little moments of synchronicity. And so let's practice the way that our technology can work together in this song. All right. Thank you so much. This sounds okay so far?
Yes. And do you want to share the title of the song?
It's called Smoke and Mirrors. Looked around and I found that the whole world was shaking. Felt like the sky was falling and the earth was quaking. And all of those that I was told were supposed to be my heroes felt like I was walking blind behind them to a place that I didn't want to go. And I was trying to see it clearer, peering out from behind the smoke and mirrors. I was trying to see it clearer, peering out from behind the smoke and mirrors. Red or blue,
good or bad, wrong or right. And so many voices swaying my choices, screaming so loud that I can't hear mine, losing sight of my divine design as I identify with one side of the line. And I was trying to see clearer, peering out from behind the smoke and mirrors. I was trying to see clearer, peering out from behind the smoke and mirrors. Pray to this body, pray to this soul. Don't tear me apart before I've had a chance to feel myself as whole. I know inside there is a part of me that wants to be free, to know every cell, every beat of my heart, every part of my body. And I know deep down in my soul that I'm powerful, beautiful. So I pray, can we slow down? Stop going up high before we've really kissed the ground. 'Cause I know that my life starts with the center. So I ask myself, remember the power, the sacredness of this temple. Sometimes I feel like I'm in the middle of a crazy war. So many sides wanting me to divide without knowing who I'm fighting for. So I invite all of us to call our power back, to know that we are full, to know that we're the source, to know that we don't lack anything. We are full and powerful, delightful, full of delight, full of the light, full of the love that we got inside. I was trying to see clearer, peering out from behind the smoke and mirrors. I was trying to see clearer, peering out from behind the smoke and mirrors. I was trying to see clearer, peering out from behind the smoke and mirrors. Peering out from behind the smoke and mirrors. Peering out from behind the smoke and mirrors. Peering out from behind the smoke and mirrors.
So beautiful. Thank you for sharing and letting that creation come through you as you were doing it. And the
Absolutely.
sound was fantastic. You all look
Thank you,
great.
Ian.
In fact, I need to ask you because the song that you sang previously is one of my favorite songs, and we want to have it in this recording. So do you think that technically the recording that you got on site, was it clear of that sound? Or should you stay on at the end and re-record that, and then we can edit it back in?
We think that it came out, but I can consult my technical advisors here to see if that might be a good idea. Because yeah, that last song is such a quintessence of what's being talked about here for sure.
Yeah, so why don't you check on that? We're still going to be here for a little while, so check on that, because it was just too good to not have the purity that you had on Smoke and Mirrors.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And I also just want to acknowledge to all of you guys that I know it's 4 o'clock in the morning where you are, and I just want to thank all of you for reorienting your days and nights in order to synchronize with us and be able to do this live, because there's other ways that we could have done it and it wouldn't have been as magic as being able to do it live and have you actually create with us in the moment. So I'm deeply grateful.
Yeah, thank you.
I really want to thank you so much for inviting us into this. We believe so deeply in each one of you and what you're up to, and we stand with you and behind you and beside you as you hold this really, really important and powerful flag. So it's really our honor, and it actually brought us a lot of joy to, in our own little way, stand in devotion, this sort of late night sadhana, so to speak. So yeah, it's our deep, deep pleasure and honor to be here.
Well, thank you so much. We send lots of love to you. Please send a message through while we're doing our final conversation and announcements and so forth. Let us know, and don't drop off until we know which way to go on that. Okay.
Absolutely. And we also, I think that Kelsey's going to post it, but we're putting a link in the chat with definite recordings of both songs too. So you'll be able to get, like, anybody can get those as their own thing, but definitely we'll stay on and figure this out so we can make sure that the full version of This Is My Life is part of this recording for sure.
Great.
Yeah, and also let people know, I think there have been drops in chat, but let people know who are listening where they can find you. And weren't you starting on a project that people might want to support with crowdfunding?
Yes. Yeah, we're actually, so the three of us and a few other amazing artists from around the world are recording our first album. We're loosely titling it Songs for the Shift, but it is a series of 9 songs that come with meditations and origin stories and interviews that are designed to really meet people in the moment that we're in this transition and help smooth and soothe this wild moment. And I have to just say, so you can go on the link, the justmagic.com/thrive. But I have to tell one teeny little story, and then I'll let you guys take us home. But there was a moment where we were rehearsing while you guys were talking, and I looked up, and Kimberly has this beautiful smile. Gregg is just emboldened and impassioned. Foster's smiling, and I'm like, people would, if they had no idea what the subject was, they would never ever guess what is being discussed here, and the significance of what's being discussed, because the energetics that you guys have and the wholeness that you steward your mission from is so grounded. It's so grounded in love and care. And so I just want to reflect that too, because, with it all silenced, it was like you were just putting out a feeling of, we got this. And I just want to thank you for that. It's very rare to be able to know as much as each one of you know, and be able to hold the level of integrity and care and positivity that you do. So I just really personally, and probably on behalf of many, many people here, want to thank you for that.
You are
Wow,
welcome.
Jess, just thank you so much. You know, your song is the mantra, the humans must prevail. We can't let the machines win. So I love you all and thank you. I hope you take the rest of the night off after you finish here. And thank
We're
you.
all activated from our cacao.
No, thank you for the love and the care that you have brought to our community to really help to anchor. This is big stuff. It's a big conversation. It's a very different way of thinking for some people. And I personally, I just really appreciate you and all that you do. So thank you.
Yeah, I have this sense that Smoke and Mirrors is like a soundtrack for going into the rabbit hole. And then This Is My Life is the anthem for the light at the end of the rabbit hole.
Yes. Yes. It's like the holding, it's like these songs. We want to, Smoke and Mirrors is to hold your hand as you go through, you know, and kind of be like, okay, we're in this together. And then, yes, absolutely the anthem for the celebration. And thank you for summarizing it that way. That feels very, very, very true.
Well,
Yeah,
Gregg
and
is
my love to your hot guitar player is off camera, and whoever's behind the camera has done a really good job today. So whoever that is, thank you.
The sexy Pete Longworth, indeed.
Yes, great.
Well, Gregg is an amazing singer songwriter, and so is Leandrew. And one of the things that we've really learned and try to incorporate into the Thrive movement as we go along is that information is critical. But if it's really challenging information, especially, it's difficult to let it past your head. It's hard enough to let it into your head, much less to let it go into your heart and then into your soul. And it's really completely aligned music like what you're doing that empowers all of humanity to do that. So there's just no greater gift that you guys can be given. Thank you so much.
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Feel
All
deeply
right.
seen.
Well, we'll
Thank you so
continue
much.
the announcements on our own. And you guys let us know about the other recording.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Leandrew, do you have an announcement of any sort for us?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I just want to reiterate what you mentioned earlier, that we have the movie open free on April 23rd for everybody to check out and watch. And when you do, please register and leave us your feedback. So much effort and time and energy and love and resources have gone into making this film, and we've received some amazing compliments so far. But yeah, it makes it all worth it. So please leave your feedback, and it's a great opportunity to share with your friends and family that you think may be open to it. So that's pretty much all I have.
Okay, let me just clarify one thing, that it starts being available on April 23rd, but it'll be available for a limited time after that, for a number of days after that. And you can go ahead and register now. We actually just launched that site today, so you can register to be notified when that goes free. So one of the things that I wanted to mention was that for those of you who are new, that just a reminder that you are in the Freedom Portal right now. This is what it's like in the Freedom Portal. So we want to invite you to visit our website at thriveon.com, check that out, and join the Freedom Portal. It's people like you subscribing to the Freedom Portal and telling your friends about it that makes this conversation spread, because this isn't just a meme. You know, this is not a social media post. We do deep dives, as you can see, and it can be challenging. It's not for everybody. But the reason we do it is to bring people to the light at the end of the tunnel and empower solutions. So let me give you a little preview of what we're doing next month. This has been Health, Freedom, and AI colliding this month. And then next month, we're doing we usually have a theme for the entire month. And next month is conspiracy. For a long time, the CIA tried to make conspiracy into a fringe thing. Well, obviously, that's not working anymore. Every community is having to deal with, well, what is this conspiracy thing? Are there really conspiracies? And is this just conspiracy theory? So I should stop thinking. So the first event, which will be Saturday, April 3rd, I'll be doing a deep dive called Unveiling Truth About Conspiracy Before It's Too Late. So, so I'll be doing a deep dive for about an hour, and then we'll open it up to a full-on Q&A. I'm going to be going on to what's the history, what's the source, what are the chilling implications, and then most importantly, what can we do about it? Then the next weekend after that, we have what we call the Worldview Pioneers section, where I bring in cutting edge thinkers from these particular topics. And we're having Madhava Sethi, who's the author of Woke, amazing book. It's not what you think it is, all you wokesters out there. It goes way beyond the usual woke to actually awakening. And then Daniel Pinchbeck will be joining us, who's written a book recently called Conspiranoia. You know, these days you're hearing about not only conspiracy, but conspiranoia, conspirituality, conspiriality. You know, everybody's got their different version, but the one thing that's clear is that it's arising for inspection. And so we're going to be doing that very deeply next month. There'll be a third one, but I'm not in a position to announce the full content of that one yet. So let's go back to Gregg. And we're at 1/4 the hour. So I think we should probably leave it here, even though I would just love to go on for the next hour. This is such a rich topic, but this is what we want to do, is catalyze people's thinking, catalyze their feeling, have them listen to people who don't necessarily agree about everything, so that ultimately they're doing their own thinking. They're inspecting their own inner knowing and then making up their mind and taking actions on their own. So I think what I would like to do is return and get a final statement, first of all, from Gregg, and then from Kimberly before we all part ways.
My final statement.
for this show.
First, Foster, I just want to thank you and Kimberly, Leandrew, and the crew working behind the scenes. They're important conversations. They're not always easy. Yeah. They're delicate, and we have a hypercharged environment of people assigning meaning to words in new ways that make it difficult to have this conversation. So thank you for helping us to keep it objective. We're not inciting, anything. Where I'm coming from is, I think when the facts are clear, our choices become obvious. And I think it's important to be honest, truthful, factual, not judgmental, not hurtful. I think there's a kind way to treat one another, whether we're having these conversations with our family at the dinner table or on an internet panel. And I think that's important. And for me, the bottom line is the better we know ourselves, the better equipped we are to meet whatever life brings to our doorstep, whatever it is. The better we know ourselves, because we are rare, precious, exceptional, extraordinary beings, so much more than we've been led to believe. And I think everything that's happening is happening to lead us to that understanding. And from that perspective, I think that's where I'll leave my part of the conversation today. And I hope that what we've shared has helped to move us a little closer to the mark of understanding who we are and what that potential really is.
Thank you. I'm really confident that it has. And I just want to say that one of the things that I am most deeply left with from what you said today was this bifurcation that's going on in society. Because, we're at the Tribe, we're very solutions oriented, we're very information oriented. All of that is critical. What you said took me to a next level today, which is that as we go down this fork in the road, one way or the other, people are going to be watching each other's being. And if the more their being is thriving, the more people are going to want to get over on that road. So there is an inner radiance that comes from starting with ourselves that is beyond all the strategies and tactics it needs to go along with it, but it really needs to be there. So thank you so much for anchoring that one in.
My
Yeah.
pleasure, my honor. I look forward. We could call this program 1, and maybe we'll have a program 2 to follow up, because this is a deep, rich topic. Kimberly, thank you for leading us into the conversation.
Oh, well, thank you. And yes, there are a lot of questions, and I would love to dive in more to those with you. So hopefully we do have another one that comes up in the future. And I'm also very empowered in my relationship with you because of the perspective that you bring, Gregg. And I feel like really what I take is that, we have been trained to look outside of ourselves for interpretations of who we are and what we're capable of and what's true and what we should and shouldn't do. And whether it's, the magic pill to make us healthy or the neural link to make us more capable or something, all of these external supposed answers, when in fact, when we come home to ourselves and take responsibility for who we are and practice what we learn and know with healthy choices that we make, with cultivating relations with one another, the messy emotional work of maintaining relationships across worldview, all of that kind of stuff, what we land on is something so vast and gorgeous and worthy of our awe that then we protect it from there. Health begets health, love begets love. And our job is to develop the practices of being our best selves. And when we stray, to come back and practice again and to develop relationships that help support us in doing that. And we hope that our offerings from Thrive and Thrive 2 in particular, in the form of the movie, and Foster's Freedom Portal, are ways to help facilitate that for each of you. So I'm very grateful for this group. Foster, thank you for hosting me as your guest on the Freedom Portal. And thank you to everybody who's tuned in here. And thank you, Gregg. I love you all.
Kimberly, thank you so much. I cannot put into words how profound your contribution has been this month. I mean, your presence, of course, is always so radiant and impactful. The feedback that we've been getting this month from literally all over the world is that the information was very new to most people and really impactful in a deep and challenging way. And the vibration with which you, Kimberly, carried that off, and then that Christian Pusateri did, and John Hunt did, and then Gregg Braden did, has literally created a safe portal for people to take this in, feel whatever they feel, because that's exactly what you need to feel, and that will change over time. So I think that this is a landmark series that we will be putting clips out all over the internet. Ultimately, the whole thing, this show today will be available to everybody right away. The last 2 shows ultimately will become available to everyone. But these are milestones that people can use to navigate by, because this topic is not going away. It's just something that we need to solve ongoingly.
Yeah.
So I look forward to having you back, Kimberly, when the time is right. And the last thing, I guess my last thing I want to say is that these relationships, Kimberly, you were talking about the relationships that get built around this, and so was Gregg. These relationships, like I get to have with you, Kimberly, is the ultimate one that showed me that full-on thriving is possible. And you remind me of that by your presence all the time. And the relationship that we get to have with Gregg and with the crew that has put this together, and then everyone that is tuning in, and these amazing musicians. Just real quickly, I woke up from a nightmare this morning about 5 a.m. And when I went back to bed later on and said, Kimberly's like, why were you up so early? And I said, I had this dream. And she said, what was it? And I was supposed to be presenting at a conference, but everything was disorganized and I couldn't remember what I was supposed to speak about. And I was doing the video recording myself. And then I forgot to to put the recording on at the beginning. And then, but somebody else was recording. So I went over, asked if I could borrow their recording. I looked through the lens and it was all covered with this gunk. And I just woke up thinking, with this feeling like I had to do it on my own. And it was such a relief to wake up into the reality of, yes, we're in a challenging reality, virtual, biological, whatever it is, but we are not alone. We are together with each other, and that's boundless. And then we're together as expressions of the unified field, which is really boundless. So that's my final message to you all. Thank you so much for your participation. We couldn't do it without you. And we will look forward to seeing you next time.
That was beautiful, Foster. I just wanted to jump on and update you guys that we do indeed have a good recording of the musicians' first song. So that's great. And they've offered to play us out and sing for an outro rather than our usual.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, we'd love to welcome Jess and Jenna and Keita back on.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Love you all. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Bye.
Love you so much. This last song is called We Are All One. This will be going on the album as well. And I have to just say that We Are All One sounds kind of cliche until you have really highly credible scientists backing up that that's true. So I love being on shows with artistic scientists because it makes all the songs feel even that much more valid, actually. Keita is a former reggae star. I'm just gonna out him right here in public in front of you all. So he's gonna let a bit of that style come out. We share one sun, we are the children whose time has come. Tired of fighting, we are igniting our fire. So rise up, my brothers, you are the ones to stand up for your daughters, rise up for your sons, for your mothers, for your fathers, for each other. Carry the code for what our mother needs. We gotta listen instead of wishing for change. So rise up, my sisters, I feel your beating hearts. Resilient women with wisdom to impart. Lift up your voices, make new choices for our children. As her children and live as her lover. She's been providing, so we're uniting in her honor. Oh, we are one circle, we are tribe. We are a vision coming alive. Ancestors, they could see this living prophecy that we are all one.
Thank you, Luminous Nectar.